On Christmas Eve, I spotted the family portrait in its glossy frame. My face had been completely cut out. No one said a word about it the next day. I handed my parents an envelope and quietly said, "Don't open it right now." Naturally, they opened it anyway. My mom burst into tears. My dad's face drained of color. I wish I could say I hadn't seen it coming, that it hit me like a shocking twist at the end of some emotional drama. But truthfully, it didn't feel unexpected. It felt strangely inevitable. I stepped into my parents' living room, snow clinging to my boots as I stomped them clean. I glanced up, and there it was. The photograph, glossy and oversized, expertly framed, placed with care and pride directly above the fireplace, like it was the centerpiece of our family story. Everyone was there. My mom in her signature red blazer, grinning like she hadn't spent years sighing at anything that didn't involve my sister. My dad, frozen in that stiff smile. He reserves for posed pictures and golf course selfies. And my sister, naturally at the forefront, in some beige turtleneck that probably cost more than my entire month's rent. She was doing her usual candid pose, laughing at some imagined joke, effortlessly likable, effortlessly composed, probably something witty about her trust fund. But I wasn't there, not even awkwardly tucked into a corner, not blurred in the distance, just entirely absent. It wasn't a sloppy crop. It was meticulous, deliberate, a clean erasure, as though I'd been edited out of their story with precision. No smears, no trace, just removed. I stared at it for maybe 4 seconds, 5, max. Just enough time for my stomach to twist itself up, not enough for anyone to catch on, or maybe they did notice and chose not to care. "Dinner's almost ready," Mom called out from the kitchen, her voice light, casual, like nothing was wrong, like we were a picture-perfect family. I could smell the rosemary and lemon from whatever dish she was roasting. Holiday scents, comforting, nostalgic, ones I used to love back when they still meant something warm. I hung my coat by the door, muttered a quick hello, and stepped into the kitchen. My sister, of course, was already there, swirling wine in her glass, like she was filming a holiday special on wine pairings. She leaned in for one of her signature air kisses, just close enough for the gesture to count, just distant enough to avoid contact. "You made it," she said, like I'd shown up late to her carefully planned event, as though this was her home. I didn't respond, just smiled. The kind of smile you give after you've screamed into your pillow 3 separate times that month and decided your voice wasn't worth spending anymore. Dinner played out like a rehearsed scene. Dad sliced the roast with exaggerated care, as though hoping for a role in a holiday commercial. Mom praised my sister's glowing skin, twice. No one asked how I'd been. No one inquired where I lived or what I was up to. The only question directed my way was whether I still had that little car, which, of course, is code for "we haven't the faintest idea what's happening in your life, and we're hoping you'll offer details so we can pretend we're interested." I didn't take the bait. Instead, I watched my sister open a small box from Mom and Dad, a neatly wrapped gift, a vintage gold watch. "Nothing extravagant," Mom insisted, which would have been funny if the folded receipt hadn't been tucked beneath the tissue paper, and yes, I saw the price. I'd have to work a week and a half to afford it, and that's assuming I skipped groceries. "Oh my God, you guys," my sister beamed. "This is just wow, thought you'd like it," Dad said, grinning like he'd just secured a merger. Meanwhile, I got a mug that said somebody's favorite daughter, which I'm sure was meant to be ironic. Or was it hard to say? I excused myself after dessert, said I was tired. Mom offered me the guest room, not my room, not your old room, just the guest room. Base sheets, dusty bookshelf, one lamp that flickered. If you breathed too close to it, I shut the door behind me, turned on the lamp, which flickered on cue, and sat on the edge of the bed. That's when I pulled out the envelope. It had been sitting in my bag the whole time. Thick ivory paper, embossed seal. I thought about giving it to them in the morning after the stockings, after the cinnamon rolls, after the performance. But standing in that living room, looking at that photo, seeing my entire existence airbrushed out like a glitch in the family algorithm. Yeah, I changed my mind. They didn't just forget me, they erased me. Carefully, strategically, like I'd been a bad brand. Partnership. I turned the envelope over in my hands. It felt heavy that night, I lay in bed and let the house settle around me. Same creaky floorboards, same ticking wall clock. Somewhere in the hall, my dad was snoring. My mom's voice drifted up once. Something about bringing the good plates tomorrow? My sister laughed in that practiced, breathy way of hers. The Golden Child soundtrack. I closed my eyes and thought about the years. The time I got into my dream college and they said, "We're so proud," before immediately asking if I could defer a year so they could help my sister with her portfolio. The time I missed rent and called home and Dad said, "Things are tight right now," while planning a cruise for her birthday. The time I brought home a boyfriend and they forgot his name at dinner. He never came back. I didn't blame him. I was tired of telling myself I was just sensitive, tired of pretending I misunderstood that night, lying in a bed that was supposed to feel familiar but didn't. I stopped making excuses tomorrow. I would give them the envelope. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't even raise my voice. I just smile, say, "Merry Christmas," and watch the truth do what years of silence never could. I woke up to the smell of coffee and cinnamon rolls and the faint sound of my sister's voice saying something about luggage weight limits and how stressful travel is. Honestly, the irony, of course, being that she wasn't the one paying for her travel or her luggage or the suitcase or the shoes inside the suitcase that cost more than my monthly rent. But yes, devastating stuff. Cue the sigh and pout. I stayed in the guest room a little longer than necessary, not because I was still tired, but because I wasn't in the mood to walk back into the sitcom set that was my family's idea of Christmas. I could already imagine the fake laughter, the overcooked optimism, and someone, probably my mom, saying something like, "Isn't it nice having everyone together?" as if everyone included me, as if I hadn't spent the last decade as the human equivalent of a blurry background character in every family memory. When I finally wandered into the kitchen, my mother was plating scrambled eggs like she was auditioning for a brunch spread in a lifestyle magazine. My dad sat at the table scrolling through his phone. My sister was barefoot, sipping almond milk from a wine glass. "Good morning," my mom said, not looking up. "Hope you slept okay in the guest room." "The mattress has a personality," I said, pouring myself some coffee. She laughed like I was joking. Wasn't we made it through breakfast the way we always did, performing? There was no catching up. No one asked about my job or how I was doing or whether I was still living in that small apartment with the creaky stairs, which for the record I wasn't. My sister talked about her upcoming trip Barcelona this time and how she was so lucky to have parents who supported her dreams. I didn't say anything, just nodded along like a seat filler at an award show. They still hadn't noticed the envelope sitting in my coat pocket that would come later. Instead, I let my thoughts drift backward to everything that LED up to this moment. When I graduated high school, I got a scholarship, not a full ride, but enough to make it possible if I picked up part-time work. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, paperwork spread out, asking if they could help with the rest. Just a little, my mom gave me this look like I'd asked to borrow her wedding ring to pawn. Dad said something about tough timing, and we're still catching up from the bathroom remodel, the same remodel that. Fun fact included heated floors and a bathtub with Bluetooth. 2 months later, my sister got a new car for her 18th birthday. White leather seats, custom stereo, a bow on top. She cried when they handed her the keys, told them they were the best parents in the world. I stood next to the recycling bin holding a $20 bill tucked inside a graduation card that said, "You're going places, and you know what? I still left for college, took 3 jobs, slept 4 hours a night, ate too much. Instant ramen, graduated with honors, moved to a new city, started over." I didn't ask them for anything after that, and they didn't offer when I was laid off 2 years ago. I didn't call when I was sick and couldn't afford the medication my doctor prescribed. I didn't ask when my apartment flooded and I lost most of my furniture. I bought a used mattress off Craigslist and made do. Meanwhile, my sister posted Instagram. Stories from Santorini sponsored. Obviously, I used to wonder if maybe it was me. Maybe I was just harder to love, more reserved, less shiny. Maybe I should have joined a sorority. Smiled more worn, more beige. Maybe if I'd played piano instead of working shifts at a diner, they would have noticed me. Maybe if I hadn't made things so easy, always independent, always fine, They would have realized I needed help too, but then I remembered my 8th birthday. I had invited 6 kids over, baked cupcakes myself. Mom forgot to pick up the pizza, so we ate cheese slices on saltines. My sister had a dance recital the next day, so the whole thing ended early. They told me we'll make it up to you next year. They never did. Or the time I won a state science competition, my school called home to tell them they sent back a text. Nice job, smiley face. That was it? No dinner. No framed certificate, no mention of it ever again. My sister landed a minor role in a shampoo commercial, and they threw her a party with balloons and a custom cake that said Future Star. So no, it wasn't me. It was never me. The shift came earlier this year. I wasn't actively searching for anything. Not really. I'd gone to the local records office to request something unrelated, just a proof of address for a job I was applying to. Routine paperwork. Bureaucratic nonsense. While I was there, though, something caught my eye. A document with my name on it, linked to a property I didn't recognize. At first, I figured it had to be an error. Maybe just someone else with the same name. But curiosity, as always, got the better of me. It unraveled quickly. I started digging. Small requests, online searches, a few strategically phrased emails. And the more I uncovered, the more complicated it became. There were things I'd never been told, pieces that had been intentionally hidden, and at the center of all of it was me. I didn't react right away, didn't confront anyone. I just observed, like I'd done for most of my life. Only this time, I wasn't powerless. Now I had evidence, paperwork, records, proof. And the further I went, the more a strange kind of peace began to settle over me. It was like I'd been living underwater without ever realizing it, and suddenly I was breathing again. They hadn't just forgotten me. They'd used me, used my name, my legal rights, and most of all, my silence. But not anymore. Now I had something they'd have to acknowledge, something they couldn't ignore. That morning, after breakfast, I went upstairs to get dressed, took my time, let them go through their usual motions, gather around the tree, exchange presents, immerse themselves in their polished holiday facade. When I came back down, they were already halfway through the gifts. My sister was unwrapping something lavish, feigning surprise in the most performative way. My mom had that teary-eyed look she always saves for moments she can later romanticize on social media. My dad glanced at me and asked, "Get any sleep?" I smiled. "Enough." He gave a quick nod, then turned back to watch my sister gush over a designer handbag. I sat down quietly, reached into my coat pocket, and slid an envelope onto the table, nestled between the coffee mugs and torn up wrapping paper. No one noticed, not yet, but they would. They always did, just a little too late. About 10 minutes later, my mom finally spotted it, or more accurately, she noticed something was sitting unattended on her precious reclaimed wood table. Heaven forbid anything be placed there without a coaster or a clear reason. She picked it up cautiously, like it might be a misplaced bill or some wedding invitation for the wrong address. "What's this?" she asked aloud, aiming the question more at the room than at me. I didn't respond right away, just took another sip of my coffee, then said, "It's from me." My dad glanced up from where he was nudging bits of wrapping paper, probably hoping he'd missed a gift under the tree. "You didn't need to get us anything," he said with a smile, as if I'd handed them a novelty mug with an inspirational quote on it. "I know," I replied. "I wanted to." That got their attention. My mom sat back down, turning the envelope over in her hands. "Should we open it now?" she asked. I gave a small shrug. "I'd prefer you didn't." So of course they opened it anyway. My dad leaned in over her shoulder as she carefully broke the seal, and for a few moments the only sounds were the soft sliding of pages and the faint crinkle of paper shifting in her hands. I watched my sister fold the handles of her new designer tote just so, like it was a newborn. She just named after a French city. Then the silence changed. It thickened. I didn't even have to look up. I could feel it. Something between realization and nausea, like the exact moment you realize the milk in your coffee is sour. Right after you've swallowed, my dad let out a breath through his nose. My mom's eyes were scanning faster now, flipping to the second page. The third, like she could outrun what she was reading. My sister looked over. "What is it?" They didn't answer. She tried again, a little louder. "What's going on?" Still nothing. That was my cue. I figured it was time. You knew, I said, standing up slowly. Merry Christmas, what is this? My mom finally asked. Her voice was quiet, flat, not angry, not confused, just blank, that. I said, is a copy of Grandpa's will. She blinked. I've seen his will. We handled the estate, no. I said, you handled what you told me was the estate you never showed me. The full will just said he left a few keepsakes and some cash that went toward funeral expenses. He blinked too much, like he was stalling for time. That version didn't mention the rental property in Old Briar, I continued, probably because you were already collecting rent from it by then. My dad dropped the papers on the table like they'd burned him. Where did you get this? Oh, you know. I said public records, title searches, tax filings, archived, emails, a couple phone calls, a very patient lawyer. My sister finally stood up. Wait, what rental property? The one by the park? I turned to her. The one you used for that photo shoot last year? Yeah, that one. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. My mom finally found her voice again. Sweetheart, this isn't what it looks like, I smiled. That's funny because it looks like you used my name, my inheritance, and my legal rights to fund your lifestyle while telling me there was nothing left for me. It wasn't like that, she said too quickly. It was complicated. It wasn't, I replied. The will is extremely clear. The house was left to me, sole beneficiary, full title. Transferred, which means all that rent you've been collecting, technically stolen, and the renovations unauthorized. My dad rubbed his temples, like this conversation was giving him a migraine. I hoped it was. I knew you wouldn't understand, he muttered. You're always so dramatic. That got a laugh out of me, right? I'm dramatic. You edited me out of a family portrait and committed inheritance fraud. But sure, let's blame my tone. My sister looked genuinely confused now, like someone had pulled the rug out from under her and she still hadn't hit the floor. But that house paid for my tuition, I know, I said, and the car, and the Mexico trip, and probably a few handbags along the way. That's not fair, she snapped. You didn't need it. You were always the independent one. You never asked for help because I was told there was nothing to ask for. I said you made sure of that. My mom's voice shifted into soft, careful territory, the same tone she used when trying to return something at a boutique without a receipt. We didn't think you'd want the responsibility. You were busy. You were always so far away. I was far away, I said, because you made it very clear I wasn't welcome here. Dad pushed back his chair. You need to calm down, and you, I said, turning to him. Need a lawyer? He froze. I'm not suing, I added yet. But I've officially reclaimed ownership of the property. The tenants have been notified. Rent payments will now go to me. Your access to the house is revoked. My mom looked like she might cry, but that house was our income. We depended on that. I tilted my head, then. Maybe you shouldn't have stolen it. We're family, she whispered. No, I said. You're people I used to be related to. There's a difference. My sister crossed her arms. You think this makes you better than us? No, I said, just not beneath you anymore. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was loaded. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring a little. No one moved. No one breathed. My dad stared at the envelope like it might explode. My mom's face had gone slack. My sister looked like she couldn't process that the spotlight wasn't on her. Awake. I picked up my coat. Wait, my mom said, standing. Can't we at least talk about this? You just did, I said for years. Every time you made a decision without me, every time you left me out, every time you told me I'd understand. Someday Dad's jaw was tight. If you leave now, don't bother coming back. I paused at the door, turned to look at them, one last time. I think that's the first thing we've agreed on, and then I left. The air outside was sharp, cold, but clean. It hit my lungs like a reminder that I was still here, still standing, still real. I slid behind the wheel of my car, let the engine hum to life, and drove. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all, and sometimes the loudest scream is walking away. 3 weeks passed before the first message came through. It was from my mom. Short, polite, polished like she'd rewritten it 5 times and still wasn't sure it would land. His sweetheart, we've been talking, and we think there's been a misunderstanding. Can we chat sometime this week? Hope you're well. Love you. No punctuation at the end, just love you hanging there awkwardly like a coat on the wrong hook. I didn't respond 2 days later. Another one. Please don't let this one thing ruin everything. Your sister is very upset. Dad's trying to stay calm, but you know how he gets when he feels blindsided. Oh yes, when he feels blindsided. Not when he commits fraud, not when he lies to his daughter for years. No, feels blindsided. Poor guy. So I said nothing. Then came a voicemail from my dad. I didn't listen to it. I just stared at the notification and deleted it. The last time he called me kiddo, it was when I offered to help him set up his retirement account, and he said, "Let's leave the money stuff to people who understand it, right?" Like him, then came the email from my sister. You really think this makes you the winner? Fine, take the house, but don't come crying back when you realize money doesn't buy family. Followed by another message. A day later, Mom and Dad are really stressed. They're talking about selling the condo. That's what you wanted. Congrats, that one. I read twice, not because I felt bad, but because I wanted to make sure I understood just how much the loss of my property was unraveling. The family finances, turns out the house had been the backbone of everything. Rent from 3 units covered their mortgage, their vacations, a chunk of my sister's education, and apparently even some cosmetic work. My mom swore it was just really good skincare when I took it back. The whole machine sputtered, and I hadn't even started asking for back rent. Not yet by spring. I started hearing whispers through mutual acquaintances a neighbor mentioned. My parents were trying to refinance their condo. Another said my dad had taken up consulting, which I knew meant cold calling. Old clients, and hoping one of them still owed him a favor. My mom picked up weekend shifts at a boutique downtown, the kind of place where she used to shop. Now she rang up yoga pants for influencers and probably told herself it was temporary. My sister back living at home, the apartment in the city was too expensive, the clients dried up. Her art collective had disbanded or imploded. It was hard to tell which, and frankly, I didn't care. The GoFundMe she launched for a new creative chapter raised a grand total of $83. 2 of those dollars were from my ex-boyfriend. I don't know why that detail made me laugh, but it did. Meanwhile, I fixed up the house, my house. It was dusty at first, a little unloved, but solid. I hired a contractor to touch up the paint, replace the old windows. I cleared out the furniture my parents had stored there and donated most of it, kept one chair, a navy blue armchair that I vaguely remembered from my childhood. The only piece that didn't feel like it came with strings attached. The tenants were kind, one of them, left me a thank you. Note: after I lowered their rent by $50, said I was the first landlord who treated them like a human being. That meant more to me than any of my parents' recycled apologies ever could. It's funny. The things you start to notice when the noise dies down, the silence once heavy and personal, becomes peaceful like space you finally get to stretch into. I stopped checking my phone every hour, stopped waiting for the next guilt-laced message. I began sleeping through the night. Then, one afternoon, I discovered a letter in my mailbox. Not a text, not an email, a real letter, addressed in my mom's handwriting. I held it in my hands for a while before opening it, not because I thought it might hold anything genuine, but because I wanted to mark the moment. The envelope carried the scent of her perfume. Inside were 2 neatly written pages filled with lines like, "We didn't know. It wasn't on purpose. We just wanted what was best for everyone." My favorite line read, "You've always been so strong. We didn't realize you ever needed us." That's what people say when your silence has benefited them and they're searching for a reason they never bothered to ask why you pulled away. She ended with, "We hope one day you'll come home. Maybe we can start again. Maybe we can be a family." No mention of paying anything back. No acknowledgement of the stolen money, the deceit, or the fact that I'd literally been cut out of the family portrait, like an ex no one wants to talk about. I slid the letter into a drawer, didn't respond, didn't toss it out either. That was the last time she reached out to me directly. 3 years later, I ran into my former neighbor at a bookstore. She asked if I was still managing the property. I smiled. Still am. She paused briefly, then said, "I heard your parents went through a tough time." I didn't say anything. She gave a small nod. Well, you look happy. That's good. And I am. I still live in the house, not out of necessity, not to prove anything, but because it brings me peace. It's mine. I wake to birdsong and soft sunlight instead of creaky footsteps in the hallway and snide comments about how I never call. I rebuilt the garden out back, repainted the front steps. The windowsills are now lined with plants, the kind that thrive on light and not much else. There's a photo on my mantel now, me, standing in front of the house, holding the keys. No one else in the frame, just me. It's my favorite picture, because no one had to be cut out of it. I still hear from them once in a while. A forwarded message, a note through a cousin, a Christmas card that simply said, "Thinking of you. Hope you're doing well." No return address. I never wrote back. And the strange thing is, I'm not angry anymore. I'm not waiting for justice or closure or even an apology. Because I already have what they never managed to give me. My name, printed on something permanent. A place to belong. A life that's mine. There was a time I believed that if I just worked hard enough, just earned it, maybe they'd love me like they loved her. But real love, the kind that counts, isn't something you have to earn. It's given freely. What they offered was conditional. What I gave myself was everything they didn't. So no, I don't miss them. I don't rehearse old conversations. I don't fantasize about emotional reunions or flawless apologies that rewrite the past. Because I already rewrote it. The life I have now didn't come with approval or pretty packaging. It came from doing the hardest thing, walking away. And that, turns out, was the only gift I ever truly needed.